So thinking about national health reform issues, there are two key items that we're particularly concerned about. One of those is uninsurance. So we already talked about this 46 million uninsured, 47 million, 30 million, 60 million, whatever the number is big. And then the other main issue on the table that's being talked about in a lot of national debates is cost increases. So the long-term rate of growth of healthcare costs, which has been going up and up and up, which is affecting both individuals, private individuals who are having to pay out of pocket for healthcare and for premiums, and it's also affecting our government budgets and hence squeezing out the potential spending on other types of public programs to the extent that we don't want to raise taxes to finance it. Both of these are very important, obviously, the uninsurance and thinking about our long-term cost growth issues. I would argue that those individuals who are particularly concerned about one or the other tend to downplay the importance of the other, and I think that's a mistake. I think that there are clearly arguments that one can have about how to sequence health reforms to tackle one versus the other first, or to tackle them both together, but I do think that they're both very important to be thinking about. So let me start with uninsured. I'm very optimistic right now. I think that we're at a particularly promising point in our country's political evolution where there's a very good chance that something is going to get passed that can substantially reduce the number of uninsured in this country. It's unlikely to go anywhere near zero, but I think that we have a very good chance of making major progress. There are many different options for reducing uninsurance in general, and I'm always amazed how very well-informed individuals can have incredibly different perspectives on what the pros and cons are of any particular approach to reducing uninsurance. I think that there's an awful lot of hubris about people believing that they have the right answer, that this is how we have to do it, and if we don't do it this way, then the sky is going to fall, or if we do it this way, then this or that terrific will happen. I think as an economist, in modeling the long-term implications of any of these particular methods of reducing uninsurance is very, very difficult. It's hard to know what's going to happen to the number of uninsured in the future or national health spending in the future. It's hard to know how individuals are going to respond in terms of taking up options available to them, how firms are going to respond in terms of offering insurance, how health insurers are going to respond, etc. We do our best to model the different options, but the particular details of any particular option can matter a tremendous amount in thinking about what the implications are. So that's just beginning on a cautionary note that I think it's important to be a bit humble about what we do and don't know about how good any particular option is likely to be. At this point, we're at a place in the debate where we're really talking about a relatively narrow set of proposals that are in the realm of the politically feasible for getting passed this year. Some combination of an individual mandate, employer mandate, tax credits for low-income individuals, expanding Medicaid for even lower-income individuals. There's efforts right now to try to forge some kind of a compromise, trading off the total cost of this in terms of what the subsidies are going to be versus the amount of uninsured that we're going to be able to tackle. So are we going to be able to reduce uninsurance by 10 million, 20 million, 30 million? Is it going to cost us $800 billion, $1.5 billion over 10 years? We're sort of in that negotiation stage. I don't pretend to know where we're going to come out on this, but I do think, again, that it's important to recognize that there are many different paths to getting where I think everybody in this room wants to go. And I just want to be a little bit, I have the particular perspective that we don't want our own idea of what the perfect is to get in the way of the good. Now moving towards thinking about cost growth. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with the statistics. Go back to 1960, we spent about 5% of our GDP on healthcare. It crept up to 8% or so. People said the sky was falling, it can't possibly get any higher, the country's going to fall apart. We're up to about 16% now. It's projected to hit 20% by maybe 2017 or so. It's going up and up and up. It is going to have real implications in terms of squeezing out what we will be able to buy as a nation if that keeps going. Now, we know that unsustainable trends must end sometime. The question is when and how. I'm not particularly optimistic at this point that we have any promising ideas at play in the political arena for addressing this cost growth. And partly that's because I don't think that we have very good ideas, period, for how to do that. There's a relatively narrow set of ideas that have actually proven effective elsewhere for reducing cost growth. So let's just start with some of the things that, some basic ideas about cost growth. And I want you to distinguish between those factors which lead to elevated costs at a particular point in time versus those factors which are increasing over time. Okay, so when we make comparisons with European countries, healthcare systems, we often talk about the role of healthcare insurers in this country and say the role of profits. Okay, so we're spending a good chunk of money which is going toward the profits of health insurance companies. We spend a good chunk of money on administrative costs. We'll hear more about those as we go later on in the evening. Those tend to be costs which are relatively fixed as some proportion on a proportion of our other costs in the system. And those are not the drivers of long-term cost growth. If we want to think about reining in long-term cost growth, those are not necessarily going to be the points where we're going to have the most leverage. From an accounting standpoint, if we look at where our costs are going year to year, as our costs going up and up and up, it turns out that a lot of these costs are going towards new technologies. Now, new technologies, if you're the person who has some very serious type of cancer and there's new technology which comes along, it's a terrific thing. It's also true that we probably spend much too much on many of these new technologies because we don't have a good system for determining which of these technologies is worth investing in as a society. Okay. There's been a lot of emphasis on thinking about comparative effectiveness research for trying to come up with better information about how to choose technologies. And I'm a big supporter of comparative effectiveness research. I think that it's going to, it has great potential for improving the efficiency of the healthcare system, improving resource allocation. What I don't think that there's very good promise that comparative effectiveness will do is to slow the rate of growth of costs. Because there are many types of technologies which we underutilize today. And for every technology that we can identify that we may be overutilizing, comparative effectiveness research is likely to identify other types of technologies that we're underutilizing. So I think that's terrific if we can invest in those technologies that are going to be most important, but it's not a whole lot of promise, I think, for reining in cost growth in general. Now, what about the favorite sort of conservative tool for reining in cost growth? So this is getting skin in the game, raising cost sharing for individuals.